All right, what's up, everyone? So, in the topic today, I want to talk about how we can create energy grid optimization. So, I worked in two energy companies before. One was dirty energy, one was clean energy. I thought both experiences were pretty fun, interesting. I learned a ton. Neither job really lasted very long. There's a lot of layoffs and whatever. I think we could have done some phenomenal work and really put these guys on the map, but you need buy-in from the top executives, right? I've said this in a few of my videos, and it's absolutely true. You can lead a horse to water. You cannot make that horse drink the water, right? If you have a $50 million solution, $100 million solution, and people aren't getting on board with it, then you have nothing, right? Like it's not really anything if nobody really understands what you're doing. So let me try to clarify and reiterate what I've already said a few times. I don't really repeat myself too often. This one is different. This video is different. I promise you. So if you saw the other optimization videos, this one's going to have a different angle. And I think the payoff is going to be pretty huge. Okay, so stick with me, bear with me here, and I'll talk you through it. So, what are the benefits of managing the energy grid on an optimal level? There's multiple benefits. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. Improved energy efficiency, lower environmental impact, right? Cost savings, that's pretty huge. You think people would want to save millions of dollars? Well, not really. I mean, I can tell you stories like that's 100% true. It's pretty crazy. I mean, people spend millions 50, 60, $100 million in something and you almost have no payoff and you're thinking like, why are you doing this? It makes no sense. But people do it. They just do it, right? It's called a pet project or gold plated, gold labeled, right? They'll spend $100 million in something that makes $0 because it's in their backyard. They have a close personal interest to that thing, to that conduit that generates some money, but not a whole lot of money. Anyways, like there's a lot of waste. There's a lot of waste in the world. I try to eliminate waste, but some people love to create waste. So, getting back on track here, we have grid stability and reliability. That's huge. Integration of renewables and storage of energy. There's actually ways to store energy. It's not really huge, and you really can't store a lot of energy, but you can warehouse that on a limited basis for a temporary period of time. Real-time adaptability and accountability, right? Peak sharing and demand response. As demand increases, guys, if you are in the energy business, you have to meet that demand, right? Or you have brownouts or you have blackouts, and your name is going to be in the front page of the newspaper, locally at least, and maybe nationally too, right? And you want to avoid that kind of spotlight, right? You don't want that kind of publicity. So, and that leads right into the last thing here. So risk management and resilience, right? So there's a bunch of reasons why we have to be aware of this, why we have to stay on top of that. And even if the top management doesn't understand it, I would say just keep pushing for that change. Just try to keep implementing. Maybe you can plant the seed. Maybe the seed will germinate and grow into something. Maybe somebody will pick it up, but maybe not. I mean, like I've had lots of meetings that were just dead end. It goes nowhere. Nobody understands anything, and nobody takes action. That's unfortunate, but that happens. Okay. So, anyways, on a positive note, let's say we have a few towns in the Northeast. I live in the Northeast and New York City, actually. So we're kind of close to Albany. Syracuse isn't that far. I think it's like 3, 4 hour drive. Rochester is about the same distance. Buffalo is a little bit further. Hartford is kind of close, and New Haven is about as far away as Hartford, give or take. Okay, so here's a scenario. We have the Northeast. We have to just pick something. It could be Southeast, Southwest, Northeast, Northwest, doesn't matter, right? So we are going to go ahead and run this optimization model, and I'll talk you through it, right? So we have some real towns right here. We are going to go ahead and create a linear regression model, and we are going to say that we have solar, wind, hydro. When I worked at the clean energy company, they did all three. Okay, they couldn't really measure solar, and the wind was on again, off again. You didn't really have a lot of data around that. They had great data on the hydro, so I applaud the effort for that. This was actually, that's crazy, guys. They would have metrics coming that were actually from the metric system, so meters and centimeters and kilometers per hour, things like that. And they would have US standard, but there was no flag, so you couldn't tell which was which. So they would flip back and forth all the time, and the data was useless. Like, is this miles per hour or kilometers per hour? Nobody could even answer the question. Like, why are you even capturing that kind of data? Like, obviously, That's useless. And I know an energy company is not a data company. You wouldn't see this at Amazon or at Microsoft or at Google, right? But if your company is fundamentally not a data-driven company, then you're going to encounter issues that are just bizarre. You just can't explain, right? So that does happen. That's reality. So let's just say, ideally, in a perfect world, you have solar that can deliver, let's say, 30 megawatts of power per hour. We're going to say 40 for wind. Hydro is going to be a little bit more consistent and a little bit more robust. So I'm going to say 80. Gas is going to be 200, and unmet. So we don't want to hit this unmet trigger, right? If we can't deliver enough solar, wind, hydro, we can use gas. Gas is relatively cheap, right? This is $200 per megawatt hour of power, right? This is $1,000, so 5 times more than gas. And what is this? Like, I don't even know how many. 1,000 divided by 30, whatever that is, maybe 40 times more expensive, right? So unmet goes outside the system. You have to go to your competitor and buy energy from your competition and send that energy to the consumer of the energy, right? So the business, the corporation, the household, whoever it is, at $1,000 per megawatt hour, or 100 megawatt hours, or 1,000, whatever, it doesn't matter. That's very expensive, okay? It's 5 times more than gas, which is part of your business. But if most of your business is renewables, right, then most of your business should be supplying 30, 40, and 80. That's the cost to you, right? And these are the capacities. So this matches to that, right? 120 matches to 30, matches to solar. Wind is 40, and the capacity is 150 megawatts. 250 for hydro, and that's there. Gas is 200, and that's what it costs. And then unmet supply comes through your competitor, going outside of your network, buying it from your competition, and they're going to write you a very nice Christmas card at the end of the year. Say, thank you so much for buying all of our energy. You should be producing the energy yourself, right? If you are the energy provider, that is your business to do that. So you don't want to hit the unmet trigger, but if you do, you're going to pay. You're going to pay for that, right? And there's no capacity to that because you have to pass on this energy, right, guys? Like if you are creating brownouts and blackouts, your energy consumers are going to start to hate you, and they're going to sign up with somebody else, right? They're going to leave your business, right? So you don't want, you have to do the unmet if you get there, right? But that's going to be $1,000, right? This is 200, this is 80, 40, and 30. So we want to keep everything within the feasible range here, right? If we go beyond the feasible limits, we can still do that. But now we're just acting as a conduit. We're transferring all the energy from our competition to the end consumer, okay? So we have to be aware of that and be careful of that. So with all the foundation laid right there, I'm going to create some optimization routines that's going to help us understand what is the forecasted demand per town. Are there any anomalies? What is the optimized energy allocation? What's the total forecasted demand? And then what's the total of everything? And again, we operate within these constraints. So 120 for solar, wind is 150, hydro is 250, gas is 300, right? All these numbers match over here. So it's 300, 250, 150, 120. Those match right here. You can see that. So if we exceed these limits, we go to external sources. That's a competition. We'll buy the energy and deliver it to the end consumer, but we don't want to go there, right? So we want to say, when we run this algorithm, right, how do we optimize everything based on these costs? Now, maybe hydro is cheaper. Maybe wind is cheaper than solar. Maybe solar is the cheapest option. That's what you have to determine as a company. Like my job is never to determine, is solar the cheapest? Like we couldn't even get accurate measurements. Is solar measured in feet per second or meters per second wind speed? We couldn't even figure that out, right? Because they didn't have that on the engineering equipment that captured the data. So you have to get everything in one standard uniform system. Once you get that, then you can determine the cost to produce this energy. That was never my job, but if you tell me how much it costs, I can work out the optimization for you. So I'm making some assumptions, but it's pretty accurate. So Albany, this is how much energy we have to deliver. That is the forecasted demand per megawatt hour. Syracuse is a little bit higher. Here's Rochester, Buffalo, Hartford, and New Haven. So there could be some anomalies, right? If the sun isn't shining, then that solar equipment is not producing energy. If the wind isn't blowing, then the wind farms are not producing energy, right? Solar is fairly predictable depending on the where you're located, right, on the surface of the Earth. You get more solar exposure. Down south, they get a lot more rather than like the north, right? We don't get quite as much. If you're on the equator, you get pretty much the maximum. Does the wind blow pretty consistently, or you want a wind depleted area, right? Or is it winds sufficient, right? They design these wind farms mostly where the wind tends to go most of the time, but you can't control the wind. Sometimes the wind's blowing, sometimes it's not blowing. So the optimized allocation is wind. We're going to use that. 150 hydro, 150 gas, 216 unmet. Actually, it's 15. So we do dip in a little bit into the unmet, but only after we've met the requirements for solar. We've reached all the solar, right? That's at capacity. Wind is at capacity. Hydro is at capacity. Gas is 216. Okay, we said up to 300, right? So we're kind of getting close, but not too close. But a little bit goes into unmet, okay? So these things are, I mean, the math is very precise, but sometimes, like I said, like the solar is underperforming a little bit, the wind is underperforming a little bit, right? So you have to take this energy and move it very dynamically from the source to the destination, right? So we could dip into this unmet. It's not horrible. It's only 15 megawatts, so it's not going to cost too much, but we are going outside of the business and buying a little bit of energy to meet the demand. So overall, solar 76, wind 58, hydro 93, gas 149, unmet 372, and this is the optimization allocation. So we can compare the optimized solution to a random solution. So we have the optimized megawatts per hour that comes from right here, and we have the summary update, which comes from just above. If you trace this back, you can do a control paste and you can see where all these things come from, right? So all this stuff is trying to be optimized to the greatest extent with these constraints. That's the maximum, 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 and these are the costs, right? So we have the costs and the capacity. So hopefully this is straightforward. Once these are set, once you can determine that, and again, like I wouldn't set this personally, I don't even know what these are. You talk to the engineer and see what is realistic, and it could be a range. Maybe it's 30 to 32 or something. There could be a range, right? Because these things are somewhat fungible. And again, solar is not, the sun's not always shining. We're not getting 100% efficiency. This is not going to be 100% efficient. This is not going to be 100% efficient too, but this hydro is probably the most consistent based on my experience. That's the most consistent. This is somewhat random. This is somewhat predictable, but there's variances and there's cloudy days and sunny days too, right? So we're taking all this stuff, optimizing, go down here and get the optimal recommendation here. So here's the random megawatt hours produced, and here's the optimized, right? So we have this limitation, we have the constraint. 120 is the maximum, right, that we can charge for this if the solar farm is putting out the maximum power that it can generate. Here's the maximum for wind. Hydro is the maximum. Gas is getting, we're going dipping a little bit into that bucket for gas, 216, and the unmet is 15. Remember, if you go back here, you see these numbers, right? These align with the same, and you have the solar, wind, and hydro as the main default suppliers of energy, dipping into dirty gas a little bit and unmet just a bit. So here's the savings. So this would be the random allocation. If you're just randomly saying, here's some solar energy, here's some wind energy, and by the way, here's some hydro. I don't really know what this is over here. So you're leaving money on the table, right? If you optimize this, this is the savings right here. So you're saving 1,310 megawatt hours, 3642, 1221, 13,316, but then you're dipping into the unmet a little bit, right? So your savings are going to be erased a little bit by the unmet, because now you're being charged, remember, on $1,000 per megawatt. What is it? Where was it over here? Oh yeah, here's the unmet, right? And the gas, right? So you're paying more and more and more as you go beyond the threshold over here. So that's what we're trying to do: minimize costs and improve our savings. So the total would be 87K, right? With the random, with no optimization whatsoever, is 414,000. So you actually save $327,000. And I didn't find the time duration here, but we could say this could be on a given week or something like that. We'd have to add in the time element here because this is a little bit unknown. I didn't realize that until I'm just looking at that right now. But we could probably say this is 1 week. I think that's a fair assumption. So this would be 1 week, $327,000 is your savings. Pretty substantial savings, guys. I mean, just by optimizing, I said this so many times. You're not investing in architecture. You're not investing in infrastructure. You're not investing in IT. You're not hiring 20 analysts or 25 consultants or whatever. All this is like a simple optimization task, guys. You can put this together in a day and save $327,000 per week. So, I mean, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is serious stuff, guys. Serious stuff. I don't think a lot of people really appreciate, really understand the implications here, but this is some serious stuff. Okay, so we just saved $327,000 in 1 week. Again, that's the assumption. I didn't specify the time, but I think that's pretty realistic. So let me go ahead and refresh the chart here and see what the chart looks like. So this goes comparison filtered. If I go back here, you can see everything comes from just before that comparison DF, right? So comparison DF is that's the data frame that we just created. Anything that doesn't equal total, I had another total column, I just got rid of that. So anything that doesn't equal total, we get plotted over here. So again, 120 is the maximum allocation for solar. If we come in random, 76.3, it's underutilizing the capacity of that resource, right? We have to draw more power from solar. It can put out 120, let's capture that, not put out 76, 150. Wind can put out 150, okay? And it will fluctuate a little bit depending on how strong or how weak the wind is blowing. But if we're only drawing 58.9 megawatt hours from that resource, we're underutilizing the resource, and probably most of it is going to waste, right? Like, you can save this energy, you can store it, you can store this in batteries, you can warehouse the energy, but it doesn't last for too long. And if you don't store it, you either lose it or lose it, okay? So energy isn't really warehouseable, or you can't really store it very easily. So if you don't use the energy, it's gone, right? So if you can produce 250 megawatt hours with hydro and you're only doing 93.5, you're getting like 1/3, you're leaving 2/3 on the table, right? This asset can deliver a lot more power and a lot cheaper. So you should be doing that, right? And almost the rest gets picked up by gas. Gas can do 216, or what was it? I think 300 total. We're drawing 216 from here, and then the rest comes from unmet. So we're going outside of our network to get that. Now I have the whole breakdown here. Clean energy solar, 120 times 30 is 3,600. Wind, 6,000, 24,000. Total clean revenue, 33,000. Then dirty energy is way more expensive. That's why we're relying on clean. So 181, where is it? 181 times 600. So wait, I lost my train of thought here. 300. This would be 250. That's why this is like 250 times 80. So I have to get my Excel out. Okay, so give me a second. I see a little mistake here. I didn't notice this before. And this would be, what's 250? And this guy is, what did he say? Oh, 300. 300 for the gas. Okay, 300. Okay, so give me a second. Some of these things are done in real time, okay? So I'm just a human being. Forgive me here. 250 times 80. 250. And this is, what did we say the gas was? Gas was 300. Okay, so 300. Yeah, that was way off. So 181. So I have 216. Yeah, 216. Oh, okay, 216. Okay, that times that 20,000, and that's 64.8. Okay, so here we go. Here we go. And unmet, there was some unmet. So 15 times 1,000, that'd be 15,000. 15,000. Okay. Okay. So Total dirty 64 plus 15. That is about 6, 15, 75, 81, about 81K, around 81K. So put 81, and this is 26, 27, 28, 29. That's about 29. Okay, give or take. This is just ballpark. Uh, and what would it be? I'm gonna delete that. I don't think that makes sense anymore. Okay, that's pretty close. I just made some last minute changes, but that's pretty close, guys. We're in good shape. Okay, now we can run this analysis 100,000 times. It's called a Monte Carlo simulation. So if we do the number of simulations 100,000 times and put everything into a savings list, I can append the results to this list. You can see right here, everything goes to savings. So the random allocation comes from down here, random total, and that goes to random allocation, and that goes to random cost, right? And the random cost is this figure minus the optimized cost, and everything goes to a savings list. We're appending everything, and we will see the results at the bottom. Okay, so running this Monte Carlo simulation, I have a couple of videos that I talk about Monte Carlo and sensitivity analysis or scenario analysis. If you change some of the assumptions just slightly, what is the outcome? Monte Carlo is a little bit different. You run either tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or even millions of different analyses and see what the average outcome is, or the most likely possible scenario. So the average savings over 100,000 runs, 534K. Standard deviation is about 16,000. Again, it's somewhat randomized, right? So you have some a little higher, some a little lower. Maximum savings in this case was 568. The minimum was 499. So about 570,000 to 500,000. Okay, and then you have things like this. You have things like this over here, based on the time of the day, solar availability, based on the sign or the degree of the rotation of the Earth. We're in the northern hemisphere right now. I'm in New York City. So in the summer, we get more daylight, more sun exposure. In the winter, it's the opposite, right? Depending where you're located. If you're on the equator, you get mostly sun most of the time. So you can make this analysis a little bit more accurate, or much more accurate, actually, based on where the solar farm is located, based on where the wind farm is located. And by the way, they create these solar farms in places that get like pretty consistent sunshine, like for most intents and purposes. They create the wind farms mostly where the wind goes, right? If the wind doesn't go into some corridor, they're not going to create a wind farm there, right? They measure all these things. The engineers measure these things to try to get the best bang for the buck, right? But they're still somewhat arbitrary. It's still kind of random. The sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow, but they try to do the best that they can do. So we can go ahead and look at unmet demand and then answer this question: how much does optimization help us over a random scenario? So we already saw over here in this random scenario, like the optimization helped a lot. The savings over here was pretty significant. So here's 120 megawatt hours from solar, 150 wind, 250 hydro, gas, 216 unmet is a little bit, and then the total is here. The random scenario cost 414. The optimized cost 87,000, right? So the savings was 327,000, right? So we know that this works, right? There's no, this is not like questionable. We know that this works. We just proved that this works, right? But you have to follow the constraints. You have to do, what you need to do here, right? And pull from solar, wind, and hydro, right? And then dip in the gas a little bit if that's what you need. And if anything that's unmet, then fill the void with that. Here's the unmet demand comparison: 563 megawatt hours. This is the random allocation, and here's is the optimized allocation: 15 megawatt per hour, and unmet, right? So this is the unmet energy beyond hydro, wind, solar, and gas, right? You may have to use some gas too. Some of these companies have renewable resources, and then some of them have both clean and dirty energy. They could have both, right? If it's just dirty or just renewable, then so be it. But if you can't meet your requirements with the solar, wind, and hydro, you have unmet demand of 563 using the randomized allocation. If you optimize everything and pull the best that you can pull from all your resources, you only have 15 megawatts unmet, right? So it makes a big difference, guys. This is a big, big, big difference, right? So the reduction in unmet demand is 97.3%. So that's huge. Okay. Now, I'm not in the field doing engineering right now. I don't even have a degree in engineering. My degree is in finance. Okay. So I can't say, like, is this absolutely 100% guaranteed to work? Like, I don't know, but I know if you draw what you should from the renewables, then you're going to get pretty close to this. But there's going to be issues with, again, consistency, right? Is the sun always shining? No, it's not always shining. Is the wind always blowing? No, it's not, right? So it's going to be fluctuations. But given these assumptions, if you can still try to optimize and do the best you can do, you can increase like your business operational efficiency 97%. That's huge, guys. Like, if you look at some big companies, if they can get 1%, I will tell you from experience, sometimes 1% improvement in efficiency can translate to $1 million to the bottom line, right? You get 10% improvement in efficiency. This is $10 million on the bottom line. Not even from hiring more people, for hiring consultants, for hiring analysts, just from optimizing the way you do your business. Okay, so these are big things, guys. These are big things. So Control Enter to refresh the cell. So in this case, we're looking at scenarios off peak, expected, and then peak demand. So again, the energy business is very fungible or very flexible, right? And it's always changing. You could have peak demand, right? That's when everybody is using their AC unit. Everybody is using the hot water heater or whatever, right? And you know the expected, the normal expectation for energy demand, and then you know the peak, right? So the peak time could be everybody's using the resources, right? Off peak, not too many people are using resources. And working in the business before, I can tell you there is a Monday through Friday type of analysis where people get up, go to work, come home after they're done with work. You have the commute time in between, kind of 9 to 5-ish. So it's kind of a peak in the morning when people are getting up, getting their breakfast, getting ready to go. They leave home, they go to the office, do the office stuff, come home, watch a couple of movies or one movie, cook dinner, then go to bed, right? So you have these peaks and fluctuations Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sunday is different. And then you'll have the overnight too. So overnight, a lot of people are sleeping unless you're working the third shift. So demand drops down pretty consistently Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But again, like Monday through Friday have their own schedules, and Saturday and Sunday has its own schedules. So you just have to understand that, and understand those constraints. So the total cost off peak about 53,000 in this scenario with no unmet demand. The expected cost is 75,000 with unmet demand of 0, and then here the total cost during peak 133K, so more, and unmet demand is slightly higher, right? So we have to go to the competitor, buy this energy from them, and then transfer that to the end user. But this is the peak scenario. We're not going to hit the peak too often, so we're not super concerned about that. But again, if energy demands spike up, they have to be met. Okay, so we have clean sources, dirty sources. Okay, and what am I looking at now? Okay, to optimize revenue right here, revenue clean, optimize, revenue dirty, optimize. So again, we're doing this whole optimization process and then plotting the results. So the random allocation from dirty energy, you have 595,735 coming from dirty energy. If you optimize the process, now we have only 29,600 clean energy and 58,281 dirty energy. So 6 and 3, about 100,000 total when you optimize the business, right? Versus almost 6 times that in a random allocation non-optimized business. So 6 times less efficient if the business is not optimized. Now, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. This is probably like maybe the worst possible case scenario, probably most energy companies have figured this out. We're not going to um, like have a suboptimal business and waste 600K when we can only spend less than 100K. So they've probably figured this out. But again, like when you optimize your business, just with a little mathematics and some basic statistics, you can save a ton of money right here, right? Otherwise, you're leaving a lot of money on the table, and it's really a waste, right? So let's look at one example right here. I picked Albany. I said, show me the next day. I'm doing forecast now. The next day, next week, and next month. So based on historical actual numbers here, what would be the next day demand for energy? 92 megawatts, 90, and then 82 for next month. Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo, Hartford, New Haven. So all the numbers are over here, 156, 157, 161. And this comes back from over here towards, oh man, I hate these things, but I can't refresh. Like, I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna do it, guys. I'm not gonna say it. Okay. Anyways, be nice. Be nice. And this comes from the original estimates you saw over here, right? So, New Haven's pretty high, 155. Albany's pretty low, 92. So that's coming from there, right? Yeah, 92, and then 161 for New Haven. Okay, so we can do a quick time series forecast into the future. I think that's important too. We're looking at a lot of optimization, what's happened in the past, and then try to optimize the whole business. But I think it's also worth it just to do a quick profit forecasting analysis here. So this was created by the team that used to be called Facebook. Now it's called Meta. It used to be Facebook Profit. Now it's just Profit. Change the name there. No biggie. So we are only trying to forecast two things. We have DS, which is the date, and then Y is the target variable that we're trying to service or trying to forecast. So the DS is the date, the Y hat, Y lower is going to be the lower bound, upper is going to be the upper bound, and the trend is going to be something in between those two numbers, right? Because you can't forecast exactly what the outcome is going to be, but within certain estimates and given a certain confidence interval, you can make these forecasts pretty accurately, right? So trying to forecast Y hat, we have a lower, upper, and most likely outcome there. And then we can plot the forecast over here. And that's what it looks like, the 30-day forecast for Albany. Okay, and if you wanted to plug in another town, you could do Syracuse. And Albany, remember, was 90, 92-ish. Syracuse is going to be, I think, a little bit higher. Yeah, 15. Okay, and then you see all the towns down here, so you can see all these. Right, I like these plotting maps. You can zoom in and you can turn these things on and turn these things off too. So that's pretty nice, right? That one is off and that one's off. And then, of course, you can turn them on again too, right? And then if you just rerun the chart, you get everything back. So, so yeah, almost at the end here, so just hang with me for another minute or so. So forecasting again into the future, looking at Albany, we can look at Syracuse. That's where I went to school, SU, Syracuse. So you see the forecast here, so most likely, or the trend, and you see the upper bound on the top and the lower on the bottom, right? That's pretty obvious. And you see the deviation, the light green in between the two. That shows you the probability of the higher or lower demand for energy. Again, these things are not exact science. You can't forecast exactly what the demand is going to be for energy, but given historical actual events, you can predict that pretty accurately into the future using this profit tool. So I use that a lot in a lot of my analysis and a lot of my videos here. So basically, this is the optimized solution for minimizing cost while meeting all of the end user demand. All the customer demand has to be met. Otherwise, you're going to have brownouts and blackouts, and your name is going to be in the front page of the newspaper, and you don't want that kind of publicity, right? So this model forecasts demand and detects anomalies and solves a linear programming quantifiable problem, right, to minimize the cost. We compare it with naive solutions or random outcomes, right? That could be randomized. We saw the effect of that. You don't want to randomize your business. You want to make it very efficient, very optimized. And this optimization process uses less energy, and the whole system is just more intelligent. It's more refined. It's more more mature way of doing business, right? The random allocation is wasteful. leading to unmet demand, and it's costly for your business, right? It's going to cost you at the bottom line too, and you just don't want to get into that, right? So let me delete that. Um, and that's it. I got a couple more notes down here, but you get the point, or you get the gist of it by now. So I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. That is creating clean energy grid optimization using Python, of course. If you have any questions, post it in the comments. I like these kind of things. I might do a few more, although I've done quite a bit in optimization. I don't know how many more I'm going to do on this topic, but I think it is pretty interesting from a financial perspective, from an operational perspective, and just from a common sense and mathematical perspective. I think it's fascinating too. So I think these things are worthwhile to learn, to get into, and to assimilate in your mind and understand how this stuff works. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up here with 35 minutes. That's enough. I think I did the topic justice. I think this was a good one. I'm going to wrap it up here, and I'm going to drop this video soon. I'll share all the code with you guys, just like I always do. And I'll see you pretty soon when I post next video, okay? Until then, take care.